What's good, everyone? This is Dev, the coolest.
And this is JB.
And welcome to Flick Talk. Hey.
Hashtag Flick Talk. It lit. Oh, that's your part.
No, it's fine. It lit. Welcome back, y'all. We coming at y'all via Zoom again. We missed the studio so much.
Yes, we do. But we're happy that you guys are rocking with us and sticking with us, and hopefully continue to rock with us.
No, yeah, absolutely. So, and we know y'all really got into last week's episode talking about sex, baby. I said, because when you said don't be over there touching your thing, I said, well, people are already doing it. Nah.
Right. People have been hitting me up like, oh, this is a juicy episode.
Right.
I know about this.
I'm just so surprised people, before we get into today's topic, I'm just surprised that so many people are shocked. And I think a lot of people were shocked because they felt like they were the only ones that did some of the stuff that we said that we do, or that we like, they like the stuff that we like.
Exactly. And it's like, just because somebody doesn't necessarily talk about their sexual adventures on social media or to everyone, don't assume that they walking around here an angel. No, don't assume, don't do that.
Right. Because somebody don't got OnlyFans.
Exactly. Yeah. So what we talking about today?
We talking about DL men and keeping it on the down low.
Yeah, so the DL lifestyle.
Yes,
we're talking about. Okay, I do. To start it off, have you ever considered yourself to ever be on the DL throughout your life?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk about this later in the episode, but for the long, I guess up till maybe like high school, I was DL maybe, but I was out to people, but not out to my family at that point. But then I feel like that kind of teeters the line of discreet, but we'll get to that later on. Yeah. How about you?
I don't think I necessarily would have ever been on the down low. I think, going into what you just said right now, it was more of a discreet thing.
Right.
So that's what it was for me, just a discreet thing. And mostly because I'm just a very private person, always been a private person, but I've never been on the down low. And, to piggyback off of that, or that's a great segue to segue. And out of that, we can go ahead and give the actual definition of what the term DL or on the down low means. And what it means is, well, first, it was originated in the 90s. So that's when the term actually originated and came out, which was in the 90s. But obviously there's been, DL men, black men for centuries, for a long time now. But the actual term is, the term is a slang term that originated in the 90s in the African-American community that is used to describe information or activities that should be kept secret, i.e. sexual activities.
Yes.
That should be kept secret. And a takeaway out of that definition is the African-American community.
Right. And that's what we're focusing on. We'll bring other races into it too, but
yeah. We'll talk about that, but the correct definition was basically it was originated in the 90s in the African-American community, specifically, probably. And, what we can touch on too, and I know we have a long way to go, but what we can touch on too in this segment is it possible I know that black men, pretty much hijacked the term DL or took over the term DL because it originated from black men in the African-American community. But is it possible for like black lesbians to be in the DL too?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's something that could be highlighted as well.
Right. DL is it's not mutually exclusive to, or it's not exclusive just to men.
Exactly. So we'll touch on that as well. We'll touch on that.
I know a lot of DL women. Well, I don't know a lot of them, but I've come across a few. Okay. But anyway, so like you said, it came out in the 90s, and I think a lot of what kind of pushed people to becoming DL, or even more, was the media that was pushed in the 90s. Like when you think of shows like In Living Color, and you think of shows like Martin, and I don't know what else. I don't know if Fresh Prince really had anything like this, but Comic View. the comedy shows on BET, like anytime that there was a topic or sexuality was talked about in the lens of someone being gay, it was made fun of. It was looked at as bad. It was looked at as just a joke. And you know, it didn't validate people, or I can speak for myself as a kid even watching, it didn't validate me as someone that is queer.
Yeah.
So I think if you have someone that you're hearing all this stuff, and then you have your religion, and you have your family, and you know their thoughts on it. When you're hearing that and constantly being told like it's bad, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad, and what you really want to do is express that, of course you're going to be pushed into a closet and yeah.
Especially when it comes to media, I think that's a great point, because I feel like the media has, I mean, I can't speak in general, but I honestly feel like the media, like over the times, especially throughout the 90s when the term originated, controlled a lot of family, you know, Black family dynamics and how we, you know, were raised and what we did inside of our homes and everything. You got to think about in the 90s, a lot of people looked up to the Cosby Show. They were saying, you know, they looked up that as the, you know, ideal Black family, you know, so that just to go to show that a lot of media and what was put out around that time was very influential and with people's minds and the people's perspectives and what they looked at, you know, and what they, you know, how they move. So that definitely is a great point. In addition to that, there's also the Black church. You know what I'm saying?
Preach.
Let's talk about that. You know, let's definitely talk about that. I feel like the Black church.
Oh my goodness!
And you can attest to this. I mean, you grew up in the Black church, but I feel like the Black church played a huge role as well as, you know, pushing people further into the closet and you know allowing these Black men to find a space to be DL. You know.
Yeah, Black men and women. And it's funny because when you mentioned that earlier, like one of the women that I was thinking about was someone that I went to church with. We found out via MySpace that she was bi. She passed away, rest in peace to her. But we found out she was bi because of MySpace. She had, you know how you can put your sexual orientation on MySpace?
Yeah, I remember.
So I guess she technically wasn't DL because she had that on her page and people can see it. But in the church's eyes, she was straight. And she, you know, and there's not a space in church to talk about sexuality. It's either to be a hetero man, woman, barely talk about sex. So church definitely, I know in the Black community has a huge impact on the way we move, even beyond just being DL. It controls so much of the narrative and leads us to live a certain life based off of religion.
Yeah. So, and do you think, I do have a question when we're talking about that. Do you think that like the dynamics of church in the 90s, you know, when it involving like, you know, the gay lifestyle has evolved since then? Do you think that, you know, people still feel like a little bit of reluctant to come out based upon their religion and what is practiced in the church right now compared to the 90s?
Yeah, well, I would say that generally religion has been a little bit more embracing. Like there's a lot more non-denominational churches and you know, a lot of gay pastors and stuff now. So if you choose you want to go to that church, so be it. But generally in the Black church, I don't feel like there has been much of a move. Just think of Kim Burrell and the stuff she said recently, not too many years ago. And I want to tell you a quick story before we move on from church. I remember our youth pastor when I was little, there was a guy that was visiting our church and he was pretty flamboyant, like he was pretty feminine, like hips were switching and stuff. And so it kind of like, you know, raised eyebrows for some people. So what he did though, the man was in the backseat, mind you, he was visiting. I don't know what was in that man's heart, what he was coming to church for. He was probably trying to escape something. But then for the youth pastor at the time to get up there and say, literally was just talking to him, it was like being gay is a sin and you can't be gay. Like literally talking to him. And then people were in the car, amen. What? And it's just like, and I'm sitting there like,
that's so traumatizing. Like,
right, but that's why it pushes people within the Black church to be DL. So
exactly. On top of, and this is at this segment right now, we're just kind of like giving examples on ways that were pushed, especially in the 90s when the term first just came out, and ways that was pushed to push Black men, because I think, you know, even though it's Black men and women, the majority of it is Black men,
right.
To push Black men further into the closet and make, you know, kind of encourage them to be DL or keep their secret life and their sexuality on the DL, but just also just being raised in Black families, you know, it's just been always, and it's crazy because I feel like gay for the longest, gay or bisexual for the longest has been seen as weak. And we've mentioned this before.
Yeah.
So, you know, just growing up in a Black family, I think they honestly, there was just several times where, you know, it was just told, you know, not even a parent or uncle or auntie knowing someone's sexuality for sure, just the rhetoric in that household when you're watching TV or when you see someone walking down the street and they have a little switch in their walk, you know, they'd be like, oh, look at that F word. You know what I'm saying?
He got a little sugar in his tank.
Exactly, got a little sugar in his tank. All right, why are you walking like that? Or stop swinging your arms like that. Or, you know, don't do it like this. So it's just like, a lot of Black families and a lot of people that, you know, were raising us around that time, a lot of them didn't even know specifically that their son, their daughter, their cousins, their nieces, whatever, they didn't know at that time that they probably identified as being gay or gay, bi-curious or bisexual, but they were speaking this rhetoric that just encouraged them even more to be like, well, they don't know about me. Let me keep this a secret even more. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I'm not trying to place blame on anyone, but it's just reality. It's like what we were raised. It's kind of like just, you know, part of our culture and our community. You know?
Totally. And then really quick, I wanted to get your thoughts on if you feel, one, that women, I mean, since we're talking from a male's perspective now, do you feel like women have a role and a responsibility as to why there are men that lead a life of being down DL?
Absolutely. I feel like, you know, I love, we say this all the time, but I love Black women. Right. I definitely,
this podcast is all for Black women.
Yeah, this podcast is all for Black women. Like, we love Black women, but I wouldn't be honest if I didn't say that Black women hold a huge role on keeping Black men in the closet or making them nervous to come out or keeping them on the DL, because, you know, just the rhetoric, just like I was saying earlier, just the conversations that are had, you know, amongst women when in regards to the gay lifestyle or who they want as a man or what they look for in a man or what they won't go for. Even today, you know, you ask a lot of Black women, you know, would you ever date someone that's bisexual? You know, we had a conversation about this before on our podcast. Would you ever date anyone that's bisexual? And Black women are like, no. Well, I can't say in general, but there are Black women out there that are like, no, I would never date someone that's bisexual. Like, once I know that you've been with a man, you know what I'm saying? It's out, you know. And
when the roles are reversed,
exactly,
men are taking women regardless to what they
exactly, which is an interesting, you know, interesting topic. So, yeah, I think they do play a role. It's something that I feel that is shifting a little bit. I have run into, you know, more Black women and more women in general that said that they would be open to the idea, you know, but I feel like on a bigger scale, I think the majority of Black women don't play that shit. You know what I'm saying? They're like, and that's fine. I'm not saying that you have to, if you don't want to deal with someone that has experienced that lifestyle or that is that, you know, or that's bisexual or that's curious or whatever, that's fine. Do what you want to do. My thing specifically is like, don't bash it. You know what I'm saying? Just kind of like be open-minded to what they're doing with their lifestyle and keep keep what you want to do with your lifestyle fine. But when you start calling people out their names, when you start, you know, bringing up Bible scriptures, when you're not living the best life either, it kind of just makes the whole situation problematic. And in turn, it keeps people further in the closet and men to be DL. I'm sorry, I said that. It was a lot.
No, listen, you said everything that I was feeling though, like, because, you know, I've always had this thought that if women allow it, generally in society, it will be. Because men look for the validation of women. And women are strong in their own power and their own truth, and they don't look for the validation of men generally.
Speak.
So I think, well, yeah, so I think that whatever women allow or however they decide to move the conversation, that's what the conversation is going to be.
Yeah.
So, it's very imperative that, while it may not be your cup of tea, that's totally fine. I'm not trying to marry a straight woman, so I get it. You know what I'm saying? But it's also equally imperative that women recognize the power in their words and how a man that loves you and wants to love you, but hearing that they can't be true to their sexuality because it's a no-go for you. And that's another thing too. It's like, why is it a no-go? Is it because they hooked up with another man? Do you feel like that like demasculates them in some way? Like, and then with that, are you saying that being more feminine is less desirable? Which that's not the case. Like, so there's so much stuff to explore with that too. But I do feel like women need to understand the power in their rhetoric. I'm not saying that you need to like bisexual men or queer men or whatever. I'm not saying that. I'm saying though that bashing is not the way to go. And that's why people end up getting married to these women and then they're doing stuff behind their back, leading their own life because they're hearing from and it probably started in childhood from their mom, honestly.
Exactly.
But they're hearing from their wife like, oh my God, that's so disgusting. And it's just like, well, I mean, I like it, but now I have to do it behind your back because if you find out.
Exactly. That's a question that I would want to poll. Like, I would want to hear from more Black women. And, I believe that once this is all over and we have the opportunity, when we go to have a live show again, like we've had before, it would be really good to have like an open discussion to hear really the reasons on why Black women are so against dating men that have had led that lifestyle before, that just want to lead a straight lifestyle now, or even men that are bisexual. Like, what is the real root cause on why, a lot of you guys are so scared or against it? Because to be honest with you, there's a lot of bisexual men out there. There's a lot of gay men that are more men and actual men that identify as, that identify as heterosexual. You know what I'm saying? Like that, like you and I, we can call for ourselves, or just I'll call you for example. Like, you're very independent. You're an honest person. You're a freak, which we found out last episode. You're handsome. So it's just like, if a woman were to come across you and they find out that you're bisexual, it's just kind of silly to kind of cancel a person all because that they've had an experience in the past with men, when this person could be your soulmate. This person can literally change your whole life and bring you love and happiness, and you're already canceling them because of something that they've done in the past. It's just weird to me. But honestly, just like you said, people are entitled to how they move and everything. But I know Black women are always saying, well, there's nobody out here, there's not enough men. Either they're gay or either they're with white women and stuff like that. But it's just like, okay, well, let's turn it around. If you're more open-minded, no shade. There are people that are open-minded. I'm not bashing anybody. But if you're more open-minded to the idea of being with men that, are open to a different sexuality, or that's curious, or whatever the case may be, then maybe you wouldn't be alone.
Who knows what can happen from that. And
exactly,
because that is the talk. That's why people are at DL, because
exactly.
So I guess, what makes someone DL? Like, we've already been talking about, I think listeners probably get it and understand at this point, but I think it's important to kind of put hammer on the nail.
Absolutely.
What's the phrase? You know what I'm trying to say. Sorry, y'all. My dog is barking in the background.
Nail in the coffin.
Yeah. So what makes someone DL?
I don't know. I mean, what do you think because you said that you could relate to the whole DL lifestyle, and that you were, DL in the background. I mean, you were DL in the past, or kind of teetering towards discreet as well. So what do you think specifically makes someone DL?
It is, in my definition of it, it is someone that is leading a seemingly straight life, but is not.
Okay.
Just as a quick definition, like, and when I say seemingly straight life, it's like you're not identifying as gay. If anyone asks you, you're saying you're not gay. Or you are married to a woman and saying that you're straight, even though you might not be, right?
Yeah.
So I think in a short definition is just leading a life of being seemingly heterosexual when in reality you like the same gender, or you're open to having sex with the same gender too.
So my question would be with that too, in addition to that, would be like, what if the person isn't having sex with the other gender? I mean, with the same sex? What if they just have an attraction to the same sex, but they are living a heterosexual lifestyle, but they just have an attraction, but they never had sexual intercourse with the same sex? Like, would they still be considered DL?
I'm sorry. So you're saying like if somebody was just having casual sex with people but not becoming emotionally involved?
No, I'm saying that if somebody, say for example, I was on the DL. Well, this is the question. So can I be on the DL if I'm in a relationship with a woman and I'm still attracted to men, but I'm not having sex with them?
Oh, got it.
Would I still be considered on the DL?
Child. There's just so much going on over here. My dog's barking, people calling me. This is just a lot.
This is part of it. This is quarantine. People understand.
It's time to get in the studio.
Listen, we need the studio bad, but this is how it is, and they understand.
Right, y'all know we use Zoom. But I would say that they are not DL only because they aren't practicing having any intercourse or any type of relationship with the same sex. They could be bisexual deep down if they're attracted to men, but they're not acting on it. But I wouldn't necessarily qualify that as DL. I think DL is when you actually, like I said, lead a hetero-looking life, but behind closed doors.
You're actually still doing something.
Exactly. You're still doing something with the same gender.
So even with that, I have another one. So would that even be like, say, for example, they don't physically touch a man? What if they, like back in the day, I know when I was growing up, we had the party line. You remember the party line? You call the party line, you'd be like, what's up? This is JB.
You gotta put your deep voice on.
You right? You right. Let me do it over. What's up? This is JB. I'm calling from Oakland, California. I'm 23 years old. What's good? Hit the line. So what if you called the party line and you were talking to another man, just never done anything with another man, you were talking to another man, and then you guys both jacked off over the phone together, and you had a full-on girlfriend? Would that still consider you to be a DL?
I think so. I think that would be like what am I trying to say? Like if you act on it, you are.
Okay, so even that physicality, not even.
Yeah, I mean, you having phone sex with another man, I mean, behind your girl's back, and you're not telling her that you're at least having phone sex with another man or you're interested in another man. I feel like that would definitely.
So I have my next question. I'm sorry, I got all these questions. So what would you think that a woman, I know this is just from your personal experience, what do you think a woman would feel like if she caught her boyfriend or her husband having phone sex with another man? Do you think she has obviously she has a right to be angry, but do you think that she is wrong in wrong in her actions for making it feel like that is the extreme of sleeping with someone? I don't know how to phrase it.
I think I get what you're saying. Like it's like, because then when you think about, there are a lot of women that will allow a man to cheat on them with another woman.
Exactly.
But if they found out that it was another man, that's just like the end all.
But not even just another man, but like, I mean, because it's not nothing, because like I gave an example, it's not nothing physical. He just called on the phone. So it's like, how do you think that would be if she caught him just on the phone with a man? He's like, baby, listen, it's not like he was over here sucking my dick. We were just on the phone jacking it off, baby. Like, please forgive me. Do you think that, and let's just talk about this climate. Do you think in this climate, she would be fine to be like, no, you're okay, as long as you didn't physically touch him, or is cheating? Do you think she'll be like, cheating is cheating, it's worse even because it was a man?
I think cheating is cheating. I wouldn't say it's necessarily worse because it was a man. I know women probably feel like that's not the case, but in my opinion, I don't feel like it'll be worse because it's a man. I just feel like she'll feel bad because he's cheating. But I think the hope would be that from jump, there was a conversation that he said that he was interested in men and she would be open to it, right? Like, and if there was a conversation that was had, if men that are on the down low feel like they have the opportunity to express to their partner that while I'm not actively dating another man, I, still see men, and I think in that case it wouldn't be as bad of a situation. But I feel like there has to be a space for that conversation.
Yeah.
Right. Because then he wouldn't be DL anymore. It'll be like, okay, what's going on. So if you were to get caught, like, it's like, okay, cool, you got caught. And if I were that woman, it's like, you know what? You're having phone sex. I would prefer you to have phone sex with another man than to physically cheat on me. I prefer nothing. I prefer no cheating at all. But if you're going to do anything just to kind of like fill that void or kind of like, itch that scratch, then I would prefer, if I were a woman, that it would be that and not a physical relationship.
Okay.
Yeah. But so really quick though, I do want to differentiate the difference between discreet and DL.
Ooh, let's talk about it.
So I gave that definition of DL, leading a seemingly straight life and not actually doing it. I feel now discreet, the difference here now is that people know, and maybe you're not necessarily ashamed to express it, but you're not flaunting it. I guess. Like you're not putting it all out there. You're just like, this is my thing. I'm doing my thing. Like, I don't need the world to know about it, but I don't mind if people do know. So I think that's those are, I mean, it's kind of a blurred line with it, but I do feel like there is a major difference in that. Being discreet is like, I'm doing my thing, but I just don't want the world to know. And being DL is like, I'm doing my thing and nobody's going to know. And I'm going to tell you I'm straight, even though I'm not. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And I agree. I mean, I was literally about to say the same thing. I feel like it's definitely like, for some people, it's a blurred line. There are some people that are, they consider themselves DL only because they don't broadcast, what they do to anyone. Like nobody knows about them specifically, but inside they know that they identify as gay and they lead a gay lifestyle. So I mean, people can do and consider themselves whatever they want to consider themselves, like whatever. But I feel like, especially nowadays, there's people are literally calling themselves DL, but then they go to Pride every year. So how does that work? It's just like, you can call yourself whatever you want to call yourself, but it's like, but you're participating in Pride every year. You're going to the gay clubs, like
you have an orgy, so everybody see your face. Everybody knows who you are.
You're on the apps. You're on Grindr and Jack with your face all out,
right?
So and then you call yourself DL. It's like, really? Like, do you know the definition of DL? Really?
That would definitely be more along the lines of being discreet. Exactly. I mean, you're going out to Pride and stuff, so people are seeing it. It's not really discreet.
Exactly.
Wow, this is so funny because in the gay community we have so many layers and levels of shit. Like,
no, absolutely.
But I would say that's more what your example is. Would be more on the line of discreet. DL, no one knows you. You ain't out doing nothing.
Yeah.
Or at least in that way of going like to Pride and gay bars and stuff like that. So.
No, absolutely. I actually have. I know a few people that consider themselves DL, and I've had a conversation with them on how does that work, being that they're out in the public. You know what I'm saying? Like, I identify as gay, although I don't really like titles at all, but I identify as gay. And if you're seen with me out in the public, it's not like I'm necessarily flamboyant and wearing a flag shirt or a rainbow shirt or anything like that. But I'm unapologetically gay. I don't broadcast it, but if somebody asks me, I'd be like, I mean, are you gay? Like, what does it matter? But yeah, I am, whatever. Right. So I'm always curious on those that have the title as D, especially today, that have the title as DL, as opposed to discreet, because I mean, I can understand, especially in the climate, me personally, and my feelings on it is like, I can understand someone being discreet because honestly, it's nobody's business what you do with your life. Nobody, as long as you're safe, you're doing, you know, what you need to do safe, and you're protecting those that you're having sex with and everything like that. As long as you're doing that, then do whatever you want to do. Call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. But for me, it's kind of confusing because it's just like, especially nowadays, we live in such a world that is more accepting than ever before of the gay lifestyle. Like you mentioned earlier, when you're going to church, like they have specific churches for the LGBT community, you know. So, you know, if you are religious and you want to go pray and you want to go worship and you want to be in fellowship with other members of the congregation, like they have specific churches where you can go and do that. You know, people are way more understanding. Laws are passed now, you know, two gay people can get married, you know. So I'm always very curious on, you know, how is this word even still relevant today?
Right.
You know, how is DL still relevant today when, you know, people have so much, you know, access to just be who they want to be? I'm not judging people. You could be DL all you want to, but I'm just always curious. I'm like, we live in a different time now, you know?
No, totally. And as you were talking, I was just thinking, I was like, when was the last time I hooked up with someone that was DL? Like I was, no, I really was thinking, because, you know, you're saying now the conversation is pretty broad. Like you can be who you want to be today and things will be fine. But I was like, when was the last time that I came across someone that was, I guess, that appeared or told me that they were DL? And it's been actually a bit of time for me hooking up with someone that was DL. But I will say there was a period where DL men were the only men that I was attracted to.
Like a fetish.
Exactly. Because it was like, oh, like, I guess it was more in my discreet days. Because, you know, I came out to my parents when I was 27. That's only 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So before that, like, you know, I was out to you and friends and stuff, but I had to kind of keep it cute. You know, I was with my frat brothers and stuff. And so I had to like keep it like really under wraps. But I was really only attracted to DL dudes. One, because generally they come across as super masculine, which is what I'm attracted to. I've kind of loosened that up a little bit. You don't have to be hella masculine now.
Come on, loosen that.
Back in the day, like you had to be like hella masculine, like you had to be just male presenting, like strong as fuck. But yeah, it's been a while. I don't know if I would do it again though. I don't know if it's really a fetish for me anymore, or if it's like a thing for me, huh?
No, I was saying I could relate to that. I mean, there was a time where I necessarily wasn't seeking out people that are men that were DL. I wasn't like, oh, you're DL, or let me look for DLs, or, you know, it wasn't that type of thing. But I could relate to the fact of them being more attractive because of the qualities that I was looking for in a man, which are like masculinity, you know, at that time, which is always going to come up, you know. I mean, the space that I'm in right now, like, yeah, masculinity is attractive, but I'm way more open-minded now. So it's like, as long as you have a good heart and you're a good person, like we can vibe on that level. And I go off of energy now too. Absolutely. So, but back in the day, definitely there was a huge attraction to men that were, you know, on the DL and, you know, nobody knew, and you were sneaking, they were sneaking you into the little garage. My girlfriend's inside of her room. Let's go in the garage. And you go in the garage and give them a little bit of head and then you'll leave. Like, that was just exciting, I think, because
get that bread, then leave.
Give a little bit. Okay, come on, you know the song. Get that head, get that head, get that bread, then leave. Yeah, peace out. But yeah, so back in the day, it was exciting. It was an adrenaline rush because I'm like, this nigga got a whole girlfriend inside of the house, and I'm in the garage giving this nigga head, you know, like, and then nobody knowing it. So I totally get it. But now, like, I just, you know, I couldn't do that I couldn't do that specifically to because back then it was, even still now, it was black men that were in the DL that I was dealing with. I couldn't do that knowing that this nigga is in a relationship or married to a black woman inside the house, let alone having kids too. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just like, I'm like looking at the nigga like, nigga, you got me fucked up. Get out my face before I tell. You know, no, I wouldn't tell. Like, that also brings us to another conversation, you know, like how they live such a risky life, you know, because there's people out there that threaten their life and, you know, and their I guess you could say status and everything, in the sense of, you know, who they are and how they get down, because it's like, you have to think about it. They're messing around with guys. Majority of the guys they're messing around with are already open and that are free. So it's like, I know there are times where they're scared that their business can be put on blast. You know, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about, you know, DL men messing around with gay men, like openly gay men, and then, you know, gay men end up coming out and outing them in a sense? You know, what do you think about that?
I feel like that's really trash. It's nobody's place to out anybody.
Yeah.
It's no one's place to ever do that. I thought you were going a different direction with the question, but but it definitely, you know, no one should do that. No one should do that. And for someone to feel like they have a one up on someone because they trusted you with their sexuality and trusted you enough to hook up in the first place, for you to then turn around and expose them to the world because you're upset or because they're not reaching out to you as much anymore, is because for any reason, you know, that's trash. Did you, because I wanted to answer, I want to ask a question that I thought you were about to go.
Yeah, so
this Mercury is in retrograde.
Okay, but to answer that question I just gave you, I think it's trash too. I think that, you know, there's not enough talk about the actions that gay men do, and when it involves DL men, or people that are even men that are discreet, that just don't want their business out, not even necessarily just DL, just discreet men that don't want their business out. I think there's not enough conversation on the actions that they take. There are a lot of men out here that are gay men out here that are bitter, that are angry, that are selfish, that are out for revenge. So yes, they do end up outing these DL men or these discreet men, and in turn, unfortunately, there are reactions, because for every action there's a reaction. So in turn there are reactions, and sometimes, not saying that it's right, I'm completely against it, but sometimes these DL men or these discreet men end up taking these gay men's life because of that exact reason. They're outing them. And to your point, that is nobody's position to out anyone. You know, you could be angry, you can be upset, you could be bitter all you want to, but do not allow this person to come out on their own. If they never want to come out in their life, that's their business. You in my business, don't do that. So literally just let people live their life. Don't take it upon yourself, you know, to out someone. And unfortunately, like I was saying, a lot of, you know, the repercussions of that is, you know, gay men being, you know, beat up and sometimes killed, and not even just gay men, you know, trans women. You know, there are some trans Black women out there that end up, you know, that the DL men have a fetish or a desire for trans Black women, and they sleep with them, and the trans woman is upset because they're not being treated like they're a woman. They're being treated like a fetish, like the Black men look at them as, the DL Black men look at them as, and then they get upset and bitter, and in turn, you know, think they're doing something and out these DL men, and then in turn, you know, we would be remiss if we didn't have that conversation, because we do have conversations about protecting Black trans women. Absolutely. We both agree, and we both believe in that wholeheartedly. But the opposite side of that as well is some of the actions that are taken by some Black gay men and Black trans women that put the DL man's life in danger. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, that's just,
Well, in a lot of different ways. So, and one last thing I wanted to talk about was how, because we talked about this in a pre-meeting about how there have been DL men that have been taking stuff home to their wives.
Yes, child.
STDs and STIs. And
HIV.
You know,
I said STD and STIs and HIV.
Yeah. And so what I really wanted to just quickly say about that is, because these men are forced to be DL, I believe that a lot of them don't have the proper knowledge that we do, being open, like about PrEP or about protection in general. Like, yes, they know about condoms and whatever, but there are a lot of stuff that can be like, there's HPV vaccines, you know what I'm saying, that you can take throughout the year to help prevent the transfer of genital warts. And, you know, there's stuff out there, but because they are forced to be in the closet
and hidden,
and they can't express it, or they can't look into anything, they don't know anything. So then they run the risk of hooking up with someone that is out, or another DL man, and possibly contracting something and going home to their wives. And that's not always the case. Like I'm not saying, obviously within the LGBTQ community, we're like running around with, you know, genital warts and stuff, you know. So I'm not saying that everyone that's in our community has anything, but what I am saying is that because they are forced to be suppressed in their sexuality, the education most times isn't there, and so in turn they bring stuff home to their wives. So I feel like that's another reason why it's important for women to just have that sit down conversation and just be open with hearing and understanding where your partner is and their sexuality, and just allowing them to be open in that. Maybe not actually practice anything, but be open with it, because at the end of the day, it could save your own life.
Exactly.
If you're open to it and open to having that conversation. So
absolutely.
I just want to say that really quick.
No, and I think that was a great point to be made, because especially back in the day in the 90s, it was crazy because, I mean, HIV and AIDS was running rapid. You know, late 80s and the early 90s and the 90s in general, HIV and AIDS were running rapid. So it's like, you know, nowadays we are blessed with preventative measures like PrEP, like, you know, HIV meds that, you know, suppresses your viral load, or that helps your viral load, and, you know, you become undetectable, so you can't pass it along. So we're definitely in a better place when it comes to that. But I just look back and I think back to the 90s, where there were a lot of Black women that were dying of AIDS because of this exact thing, you know, because of because of DL men, you know, sleeping with other men and bringing it back home, all because of everything that we discussed in the beginning. So I'm happy that we're, in addition to that, I'm happy that we're in a space now where, you know, conversations are being had. We're having this conversation right now. So, you know, a lot of Black women, a lot of women in general will be listening to this episode, and hopefully they'll take some gems out of this episode and start using it in their lifestyle. You know, but it was tragic what was happening in the 90s. You know, it's going to be tragic what's happening tomorrow, because it's still going on right now. You know? But yeah, so that's definitely a great point. Also, in addition to that, I'm curious, before we move on, I know we're going to be wrapping it up soon, but I'm curious on if you believe that majority of the Black DL men that are on DL do you think they identify as tops, or do you think they identify as bottoms, or do you think they identify as verse? What do you believe?
You know, that's an interesting thing, because that's another thing. A DL does not necessarily mean that you are a top plowing down men out here.
Loopity sapa.
I've topped some DL men, and not many, but some. And and I flip-flopped some DL, huh?
I said, were they cleaned out properly?
Right. Now that, we're not gonna get into it's all of that. But and then when I'm also now, as I'm getting older, I don't know if it's just our age group or if it's just like a new wave of DL men, but it seems to me that there are more DL bottoms than anything. Because they're not getting what they need from their wives, you know, that way. They're not getting pegged that I know of. So it's like, I think they start to look for men to fulfill that urge of wanting to be, I guess, submissive. But this it's new to me, because, you know, freak Twitter and stuff is exposing a lot more about, you know, different stuff with regard to people's sexual preferences. And I'm in my experience, I'm starting to see way more DL bottoms.
Yeah, which is
but it's always been, you know, everything. What'd you say?
No. I agree. I think that's interesting to me. I'm like, really? Like, it'd be like DL bottom. I'm like, in my head, be just joking around. I'd be like, you ain't no DL. The hell? Talking about you a bottom. Nah, but yeah, obviously it's possible. And, you know, you did mention the word peg, which is essentially the woman using the strap on. So for those that don't know what that means, is there a woman using the strap on her significant other or a man or whatever, and plowing him down, which I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable with.
I wouldn't either.
So yeah, but that's
each their own. If that's your thing, that's your thing.
Exactly. So
I can do it. But like that, even I mean, wrapping it up, like it's important to have these conversations because if you don't know, you won't know. And things can happen that are just detrimental and bad in the long run. I think women really
Amen.
and men need to be open minded a lot more when it comes to sexuality.
And then the last thing I do want to touch on before we go.
Mm-hmm.
So is this exclusive to just Black men? Is the DL lifestyle just exclusive to Black men?
No, I've dealt with some DL men that were not Black. I mean, the Black community definitely coined the term, but I messed with that DL Latin man. Remember, I lost my virginity to a Latin man, and he was DL.
Okay.
We talked about that last week's episode, but he had a girlfriend and everything at home, and was picking me up, and me in the car, going right back home to his girlfriend.
Ooh,
so I don't think
kids too.
Huh?
I said, and probably kids too.
Right at this point, but I don't think it's just exclusive to Black people. I think our experience though is the Black experience. So that's What do you think?
I mean, I agree. Obviously, there can be other races that are on the down low, but I don't know. I mean, I just there's just certain things, and I'm not saying that I'm proud of the term or proud of that men have to be on the down low, but I just feel like that's part of the African American experience and our Black culture of just like, because also, what we didn't dive into is like also some of the measures that DL Black men do in addition to hooking up with gay men and trans women. There's also other things that they do in that lifestyle, which are, they frequent hookup spots like parks. Last episode we talked about different parks that they have where people go on cruise. So DL men also do that as DL Black men also do that. There's there parties that they have together with other DL men. There's a lot of things that I know being in the Black gay community that Black gay men do that I don't necessarily believe, or I can't really say that because I don't know the experience. But basically, what I'm saying is that it's ours. It's our turn. Like, come up with something else. I just sometimes when I be looking at, and I'm not ignorant or anything, but I, sometimes when I come across, a white man that, hit me up in the past and be like, I'm DL. And then he sends me like these pictures and it's like, girl, you are not DL. Like, that's not going to be. And it's like, you have to really be careful because a lot of people like use this term out of context. You know what I'm saying? In addition to them not knowing the difference between DL and being discreet, they also use it to kind of like pick up other DL men too. So they just use it because they think it's going to look attractive. Like, oh, I'm DL too, or I'm DL. Like, look at me. But secretly, like, you have a whole husband at the house and, your whole family knows and you host pride events. So, it's just, it's just really, really shaky for me. So
it is. But I do feel you. And because it is an African, we coined the term. So I feel that, I guess,
I get what you mean.
For lack of a better, I guess, term
for right now.
It's like it's ours.
It's ours. Yeah.
It's ours. So they can figure something else out. But I have messed with other races that weren't out. Put it that way.
So would you say, to wrap it up and to end it, what would you say to? I'll give you a 2-point question and we can go. But what would you say to men out there now that identify as DL, that are on the DL? What would you say to them to possibly, I know they're living their life and I know they're going to do what they want to do, but what would you say to them to encourage them to possibly come out the closet or to live a lifestyle that coincides with what they feel inside? And then my next question would be, what would you say to Black women specifically to help them become more open-minded with having partners that identify as bisexual or bi-curious? So, yeah.
So for the first question, I think to men, I think do your thing. I don't think our purpose of this episode wasn't to try to force,
obviously,
the closet. But I will say that your mental health really matters, or it should matter. And I know that being DL can be weighing, it can really weigh on an individual. So whether you decide to come out later on or not, like that's completely up to you. But I think your mental health really matters. Maybe even go to therapy and confide in the therapist about it and talk about it. But you know, just really, it's really about taking care of yourself before the thoughts of what other people are thinking about you. And now to Black women, I think it's important just to be open-minded. You, like we keep saying, we're not telling women or Black women that they have to like men that have had a sexual past with men. You know, we're not saying that at all. However, I think you do yourself a disservice when you don't allow space and room to have that conversation with your partner. And just, you know, words matter. Like even just bashing gay people is just kind of like, you know, saying like calling people faggots and like
it's not productive.
It's not productive at all. So I just think it's really important to have that space to have that conversation and be open-minded and be willing to receive whatever comes. Because I'm sure 99% of the country has had a gay experience of some sort.
Exactly.
Of some sort. So it doesn't necessarily make that person gay, but yeah.
Greatly said. I mean, you said that for the both of us. I completely agree. I couldn't agree even more. Yeah. I mean, this was a great conversation, child.
No, it was. It really, I think it was all overdue. I'm surprised we haven't talked about it, and we go 5 seasons in, we haven't had a conversation about
it. I know, right? But you know, we're here now. And
right, we're here and now. But thank y'all for listening. We hope y'all really got some good information about this and our experience with DL, or the DL experience. Thank y'all for listening.
And hopefully one day we'll actually have someone on.
Oh, Chad, ain't nobody that's DL gonna come on.
No, I'm saying, like, if we don't say his name, we give a different name. You know, we give a different name. We'd be like, would you like to tell your experience or why you did it? You know what I'm saying? Just like an interview with him.
We're gonna have to figure out how to like muffle their voice so they don't sound like how they actually sound.
Oh, we could just have, that's true. That is true.
But anyway, yes, that would be nice. That would be nice. But thank y'all for listening. We love y'all and take care of yourselves. Wear your mask. Vote. Yes. Vote. Make sure you vote. Really, really important. But yeah, we love y'all. Talk to y'all later.
Peace.
See y'all next week.